Hey guys, tonight's journey is called What Happened After Dark in a Medieval Town, in a world without electricity, without glowing windows, without the distant hum of traffic or street lights. What really happened when the sun slipped below the rooftops and the heavy wooden gates slowly closed. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Most of you watching aren't subscribed yet, and it truly helps this small, quiet corner of history continue to grow. And I'm always curious, right now, as you're listening in the stillness of the night, which city are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and if there's a medieval story you'd like to gently drift off to next, tell me that too. I read them all, and sometimes the next journey begins with your suggestion. Now, dim the lights, set your phone down softly, settle deeper into your pillow, and take one slow breath in and out. As the last light fades from the sky, we step quietly into the narrow cobblestone streets of a medieval town. After dark, the sun is beginning to lower itself behind the uneven rooftops of the medieval town. Its light stretches long and golden across crooked timber houses, narrow alleyways, and uneven cobblestones that have known the weight of countless footsteps. The air, which only hours ago buzzed with the noise of trade and chatter, begins to soften. Market stalls are being folded down. Wooden tables creak as they are dragged back inside. Fabric awnings are untied and shaken free of dust. A butcher wipes his hands slowly on a cloth that has seen better days. A baker stacks the last of the coarse loaves into a basket, saving them for tomorrow's early customers. The day is ending, and in a medieval town that means something very different from what it means today. There are no glowing streetlights waiting patiently to switch on, no electric lamps, no neon signs humming to life. Instead, the town prepares for darkness, true darkness. A bell begins to toll from the church tower. It is not rushed, it is not loud in an alarming way, but it is steady. 1, 2, 3. Each echo travels between the wooden beams and stone walls, signalling something understood by everyone who hears it. The gates will close soon. At the edges of the town stand large wooden gates reinforced with iron bands. During the day they remain open, allowing merchants, travellers, farmers and messengers to pass in and out. But once night approaches, those gates become barriers between safety and uncertainty. A pair of guards begin their slow walk toward the entrance. They wear simple armour, not polished and shining, but practical. Leather, chainmail, worn boots that have felt the weight of many patrols. One carries a lantern, already lit despite the remaining light. The flame flickers gently in the evening breeze. Children are being called indoors. A mother leans from a second-story window and shouts a name into the street below. A boy reluctantly abandons a stick-and-hoop game, glancing once more at the fading sky before disappearing through a wooden doorway. Inside homes, preparations begin. Candles are trimmed carefully. Wax is valuable. You do not waste it. Oil lamps are filled sparingly. Fireplaces are stoked just enough to last into the early night. Too much wood burned means less warmth for tomorrow. The medieval relationship with night is cautious. Darkness is not simply the absence of light. It is a presence. It carries uncertainty, but it also carries quiet. The final merchants hurry through the gate, leading donkeys or carrying small bundles. A late traveller approaches at an anxious pace, clearly hoping not to be locked outside. The guards exchange a glance, but allow him in just before the heavy wooden doors begin to move. The sound of the gates closing is unmistakable. A deep wooden groan, iron hinges shifting, then a heavy thud as the two sides meet. A thick wooden beam is slid across to secure them. The town is now sealed. Inside these walls, life continues, but it changes. The energy softens. Footsteps grow slower. Voices become lower. A faint mist begins to gather along the cobblestones, clinging to the ground like a thin blanket. From a distance, the church tower stands against a darkening sky. The last light fades from gold to amber, from amber to deep blue. The moon has not yet fully risen, but its pale glow hints at its arrival. For the medieval townspeople, this is the threshold moment. Day has authority, night has atmosphere, and as darkness spreads, routines shift in quiet and predictable ways. The blacksmith who all day hammered metal into shape now sets his tools down. The ringing clang of steel on steel fades into memory. He covers his forge, ensuring no stray spark remains. Fire, after all, is one of the greatest dangers in a town built largely of wood. A tavern keeper lights 2 lanterns outside his door. This is one of the few places where life may continue well into the evening. Soft laughter and murmured conversation will soon replace the louder daytime sounds. But even taverns respect the night. There is no wild chaos here, not the way modern imagination sometimes paints it. Instead, there is controlled warmth, controlled noise, controlled light. Inside small homes, families gather around simple meals, stew thick with barley, coarse bread dipped in broth, perhaps a little cheese. Meals are eaten slowly. Without artificial light, you cannot stretch the evening endlessly. The flame determines the pace. And so people talk. They speak of the market prices, of rumours from neighbouring towns, of a distant lord's decision, of weather, and sometimes of the night itself, because night carries stories. Outside, the watchmen begin their patrol. They walk deliberately, lantern held low. The flame casts long shadows against the timber-framed houses. Their boots strike cobblestones with a steady rhythm. They are not only guards against thieves, they are watchers for fire. They are the reassurance that someone is awake while others sleep. From a high window, a woman quietly shutters her home. Wooden panels close with a soft click. Curtains, where available, are drawn. In wealthier homes, thicker doors are barred. In poorer homes, the door may be nothing more than reinforced planks. But everyone understands the same truth. Night requires preparation. The sky deepens further. Stars begin to emerge, more numerous than we're accustomed to seeing today. Without city lights to dim them, they shine with startling clarity. Some townspeople pause to look upward. Medieval people were deeply aware of the sky. It was calendar, clock, and mystery all at once. The crescent moon now rises above the rooftops. Its pale silver light spills gently over the walls. The town is quieter now, but it is not silent. Somewhere a dog barks once. A door creaks open and then shut. A faint murmur drifts from the tavern. The watchman calls out the hour in a practiced voice, marking time for those still awake. And gradually, one by one, lights begin to disappear behind shuttered windows. The medieval night has begun, not with fear, not with chaos, but with a steady, deliberate shift, a different rhythm, a softer pulse. Inside the walls, people settle into beds that are simpler than ours. Straw mattresses, wool blankets, shared sleeping spaces. Families often sleep in the same room. Privacy is rare, warmth is precious. Some will fall asleep quickly. Others will lie awake, listening to the distant footsteps of the watchman. And beyond the gates, the countryside is dark, open, uncertain. But within these walls, the town rests in its own fragile cocoon of lantern light and guarded streets. This is how night begins in a medieval town, slowly, deliberately. With the closing of the gates, the last colour of sunset has long since disappeared. The sky above the medieval town is now a deep, endless blue, almost black, scattered with cold, distant stars. The narrow streets feel different than they did in daylight, smaller, closer, as if the buildings themselves lean inward to whisper secrets to one another. Most shutters are closed, most doors are barred, but not all of them. There is one place still awake, the tavern. It glows like a warm coal in the darkness, golden candlelight flickering behind thick glass and oiled parchment windows. If you stand quietly outside, you can hear it. A low hum of voices, the clink of pottery mugs, a burst of laughter. The tavern is the last heartbeat of the town before true silence begins. Inside, the air is thick with smoke and warmth. Beeswax candles drip slowly onto wooden tables scarred by decades of elbows and spilled ale. The scent of roasted onions, dark bread, and ale lingers heavily in the room. A travelling merchant sits in the corner, boots dusty from the road, retelling his journey for the third time that night. Each retelling grows slightly more dramatic. The forest becomes darker. The wolves become larger. The bridge he crossed becomes narrower and more dangerous. Across from him, a blacksmith listens with tired eyes. His hands are rough, knuckles scarred from years of hammering iron. He knows exaggeration when he hears it, but he lets the merchant speak. After a long day, a good story is better than truth. Near the hearth, a group of labourers finish their last mugs. Their laughter grows softer now, slower. The fire's burned low, and the innkeeper's wife is already stacking wooden plates behind the counter. The innkeeper himself stands near the door, watching, not impatient, just aware. Because outside these walls, night is not friendly. In the Middle Ages, once darkness fell, danger rose quietly with it. There were no street lamps lining the roads, no lanterns fixed to posts, only handheld torches, and those were precious. The town watch will soon make their rounds. The church bell will ring the curfew, and when it does, even this tavern must close. One of the labourers stands too quickly and sways. His friend steadies him. They step outside together, pulling cloaks tight around their shoulders. The door creaks shut behind them, and instantly the world feels colder. The street is narrow and uneven. Their boots scrape against stone. Somewhere in the distance a dog barks. A window shutter closes sharply. They speak in hushed voices now, not because they are afraid, but because night demands quiet. Sound travels differently in darkness. Every echo feels magnified. The blacksmith exits next. He walks alone. His home is not far. He knows the path by memory. 3 turns past the well, then left at the crooked elm tree. But even he keeps one hand near the small knife at his belt. Not all danger comes from wolves. Sometimes it comes from men. Meanwhile, inside the tavern, the merchant negotiates one final cup. The innkeeper shakes his head firmly. It is time. Coins exchange hands. Candles are snuffed one by one. The room grows dimmer. The hearth is covered carefully. Embers smothered to prevent accidental fire. Fire is one of the greatest fears in a medieval town. Wooden beams, thatched roofs, narrow spacing. A single spark could erase everything before dawn. The innkeeper bars the door, and just like that, the last warm light of the evening disappears. Now the town belongs to the night. The bell begins to toll. Slow, heavy. 1, 2, 3. The curfew bell is not loud in celebration. It is a warning, a reminder, a signal that those without reason to be outside must return home. The town watch emerges from a small guardhouse near the gate. 2 men tonight, cloaks wrapped tight, spears in hand, a lantern between them, its glow small but steady. Their footsteps are measured, not hurried. They know these streets better than anyone. They patrol them every night, in all weather, in all seasons. Their job is not glamorous, it is necessary. They check door latches, peer into alleyways, pause near the grain store. The silence deepens. A stray cat darts across the path and disappears beneath a cart. One of the watchmen exhales sharply, then chuckles quietly at himself. Even trained men feel the weight of darkness. Above them clouds drift slowly across the moon. When the moon is hidden, the town becomes nearly blind. You would be surprised how dark true darkness is. Without modern light, the world at night becomes shadow upon shadow. Shapes blur, corners vanish, the familiar becomes unfamiliar. A loose shutter tapping against a wall can sound like footsteps. Wind brushing through hanging laundry can resemble whispering voices. And in the medieval mind, darkness was not empty. It was full of spirits, full of omens, full of things unseen. Inside the homes, families prepare for sleep. A mother adds one last log to a small indoor hearth. Her children already lie on straw-stuffed mattresses, sharing blankets for warmth. The youngest asks in a whisper, "Are the gates closed?" "Yes," she replies softly. That answer matters, because once the gates are shut, the outside world stays outside. Travellers arriving too late must wait until morning. Merchants with wagons sleep beneath the walls, and anyone still wandering the countryside after dark risks far more than inconvenience. The father of the house kneels briefly beside the door. He checks the wooden bar twice, not out of paranoia, but habit. Protection was layered. Wooden bars, iron latches, faith. A quiet prayer murmured before bed. The candle is blown out. Darkness fills the room completely. Not dimness, not shadow, complete blackness. And slowly, breathing evens out. But not everyone sleeps. In a small house near the edge of town, a woman sits awake. She's a midwife. Night is often when she's needed most. Her tools rest neatly in a wooden chest. Clean cloth, herbs, simple instruments. She listens carefully to the wind, waiting for a knock, and eventually it comes. Soft, urgent. A young boy stands at her door, breath visible in the cold air. "It's my mother," he says. Without hesitation she gathers her things, wraps her cloak tightly, steps into the night. The town watch recognizes her and nods. They escort her halfway, lantern held high to guide her steps. Because even in darkness, life continues. Babies are born. Illness strikes. Emergencies do not wait for sunrise. Back at the town gate, the guards atop the wall shift their weight to stay warm. From this height, the countryside looks endless and black. The forest beyond seems to swallow light whole. They scan for movement, for flickering torches, for silhouettes. Most nights nothing happens, but history has taught them not to assume safety. Raids, bandits, wandering soldiers. The threat may be rare, but it is real. And so they watch. As midnight approaches, even the smallest sounds grow louder. A bucket creaks gently in the well rope. Wind hums faintly through cracks in stone. Somewhere, a baby cries, then is soothed back to silence. The town breathes slowly now, deeply, steadily. The tavern is dark. The forge is cold. The market square stands empty beneath the moonlight. Stalls covered. Scales tucked away, bread sold out hours ago. In the stillness, you can almost feel time stretching wider than it does during the day. Night in a medieval town is not filled with entertainment. There are no theatres open late, no street musicians, no glowing shop windows. There is rest and waiting for dawn. The watchmen pause near the chapel. One leans on his spear briefly. The other adjusts the lantern wick. "Quiet night," one murmurs. "For now," the other replies. They continue. Because until the first hint of light appears on the horizon, the town belongs to them, and to the shadows. As you listen, imagine yourself walking these streets. No phone light in your hand, no distant headlights, only stars, only breath in cool air, only the echo of your own footsteps. Would it feel peaceful or heavy? For the people of the Middle Ages, this rhythm was normal, expected, understood. Day was survival, night was surrender, surrender to rest, surrender to uncertainty, surrender to the quiet power of darkness. And so, as the hours pass, the medieval town settles deeper and deeper into stillness, until even the watch grows silent, until even the wind pauses, and somewhere far away, barely noticeable at first, a faint line of grey begins to soften the edge of the sky. But the night has settled fully now, not the early evening kind of night, where voices still drift from doorways and footsteps echo across cobblestones. This is the deeper hour, the hour when most fires have turned to ash, when most candles have burned down to thin, curling threads of smoke, when even the town watch begins to feel the heaviness behind their eyes. Midnight has passed, and in a medieval town, this is when the world feels different. If you were standing at the centre of the market square, you would see almost nothing. The wooden stalls are only shapes. The fountain at the centre looks like a darker patch of shadow. The church tower rises above everything, a silent guardian, its edges softened by moonlight. The air is cooler now, colder than it was just an hour ago. A thin mist creeps slowly along the ground, collecting in the lower parts of the street. It wraps around wagon wheels left outside. It gathers at doorsteps. It blurs the sharp corners of buildings. And in this hour, imagination becomes stronger. In the Middle Ages, night was not simply darkness. It was mystery. Without scientific explanations for every sound and shadow, people filled the unknown with stories. Spirits were said to wander after midnight, restless souls, unfinished business, warnings carried on the wind. If a shutter banged unexpectedly, it was not always blamed on the breeze. If footsteps echoed behind you, and no one stood there, you might not assume coincidence. Belief and reality blended easily in the dark. Near the edge of town, where the cobblestones give way to packed dirt, a lone figure moves quietly. Not a criminal, not a ghost, a baker. His day begins when others sleep. In a small stone building behind his home, he kneels beside a clay oven. The coals are carefully arranged, glowing softly like red jewels in the darkness. He works in near silence, hands dusted with flour, movements slow and practiced. Bread must be ready at dawn, and bread requires time. He kneads the dough gently. The soft rhythm of his hands pressing and folding becomes almost like breathing. Outside, the town is silent. Inside, there is only the faint crackle of heat and the quiet exhale of effort. This is the unseen side of medieval night. While most rest, a few prepare. Millers sometimes worked late if wind conditions were right. The turning of a distant windmill could echo faintly through the stillness. Its slow rotation under moonlight looked almost alive, long wooden arms slicing gently through the sky. Monks in nearby monasteries often woke during these hours to pray. In candlelit stone corridors they whispered psalms in voices so soft they barely disturbed the air. Their routine did not change for darkness. If anything, night deepened their devotion. But inside the town walls, most homes remained sealed. Wooden shutters closed tight. Straw mattresses filled with the warmth of sleeping bodies. Families sharing blankets. The rich and the poor alike experienced the same darkness. There is no electric glow separating one home from another. Only silence. A dog begins to bark somewhere near the southern gate. Sharp, sudden. The town watch stiffens. They pause, listening. The barking continues for a few moments and then stops. Perhaps a fox passed too close to the wall. Perhaps nothing at all. Still, one of the watchmen lifts his lantern higher and walks toward the sound. His boots scrape softly over stone. His breath forms small clouds in the cool air. He scans the shadows near the gate. The massive wooden doors are secured with iron braces. The hinges are thick and heavy. Beyond them lies open countryside, unseen but felt. He waits, listens. Nothing. Just wind brushing against wood. After a moment he turns back. Even the smallest disturbance must be checked, because once the gates are closed, those inside depend completely on the watch. In a modest home near the well, a young girl stirs from sleep. She sits up slightly, heart beating faster. She thought she heard something. A whisper. A scrape. She holds her breath. Her parents sleep beside her. Her younger brother snores softly. Again, a faint sound. She waits, and then she realizes it is the wind slipping through a crack in the shutters. Her shoulders relax, but she doesn't lie down immediately. Instead, she looks toward the small gap where moonlight slips into the room. A thin silver line stretches across the floor. dust floats lazily in its glow. To her, this light feels magical. Daylight shows everything clearly, but moonlight suggests, hints, invites imagination. Eventually sleep returns, and the house grows still once more. At the very centre of town stands the church. Its heavy wooden doors are shut. Its stained glass windows are black from the outside. But inside a single candle burns near the altar, left intentionally, a symbol of watchfulness. The flame flickers gently, casting long, slow-moving shadows across stone walls. If you stood inside, you might feel the weight of centuries pressing softly around you. Churches in medieval towns were more than places of worship. They were anchors, centres of community, refuges in times of danger. And even at night they were not completely abandoned. Some believed that holy ground offered protection from whatever might wander after dark. Whether that protection was physical or spiritual did not matter. Belief itself was powerful. As the hours stretch on, the mist thickens. It pools in the lower streets, creeping slowly toward the square. The world shrinks to shorter distances. Visibility narrows. This is when even brave men prefer to remain indoors, not because something waits in the fog, but because the unknown feels closer. A cart left unattended looks like a crouched figure. A hanging sign sways slightly, creaking like a quiet sigh. A loose piece of metal taps against stone in uneven rhythm. Tap, pause, tap. The mind fills in gaps, and in medieval times, imagination was rarely dismissed. Stories passed down for generations shaped how people experienced the night. Tales of wandering spirits, of protective saints, of omens in the sky. If a shooting star streaked across the darkness, it was not simply a meteor. It was a message. Everything had meaning. Near the northern wall, one of the watchmen pauses again. He leans against the cold stone and looks upward. The stars are brighter here than in any modern city. Thousands of them, clear and sharp. Without artificial light, the sky becomes enormous. He recognizes constellations taught to him as a boy, shapes that help travellers navigate, patterns farmers use to predict seasons. The stars provide comfort. They are steady, unchanging, reliable in a world that can feel fragile. After a moment he straightens and resumes his patrol. Only a few more hours until dawn. Inside the baker's workshop, the first loaves are placed carefully into the oven. The heat radiates outward, warming the small room. The scent of rising bread begins to fill the air, soft, earthy, comforting. Soon, that smell will drift faintly into the street. It will be the first sign that morning approaches, but for now, it remains contained, private, quiet. The medieval town at this hour is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not teem with hidden criminals or constant danger. Most nights are ordinary, peaceful, still. And yet, the stillness carries weight. Because in a time without modern security, without rapid communication, without immediate help from distant authorities, safety feels fragile. Communities depended on each other, on strong gates, on responsible watchmen, on routine. Routine brought comfort, and night followed a routine of its own. Curfew, silence, patrol, rest. Then eventually, light. Far in the distance, beyond the walls, a rooster crows prematurely, too early. The sound barely reaches the town, softened by mist and distance. But one of the watchmen hears it. He smiles faintly. Morning is not far now. The sky has not yet changed colour, but something subtle shifts. The air feels lighter, the darkness less heavy. Soon the first grey edge of dawn will trace along the horizon. Doors will unbar, shutters will creak open, fires will be rekindled, and the town will wake as if night never held it in its quiet grip. But for these final moments, the medieval town belongs to whispers, to soft footsteps, to breath in cool air, to flickering embers, to unseen prayers, to imagination dancing gently in moonlight, and as you drift deeper into relaxation, picture yourself there, walking slowly through the narrow street, mist brushing against your boots, stars above you. No rush, no noise, only stillness. The kind of stillness that feels almost sacred, the kind that medieval towns knew every single night and held quietly until morning. Beyond the clustered wooden homes and narrow cobblestone streets, rising slightly above the rest of the town, stands the castle. By day it is a place of authority, stone walls thick and unmoving, banners hanging from high towers, guards posted at gates, messengers riding in and out beneath the watchful eyes of soldiers. But at night, even a castle changes. The banners hang limp in the cooler air. The outer courtyard, once alive with movement, stands nearly empty. Footsteps echo more clearly across stone. If you were to stand at the base of the castle walls after midnight, you might feel very small. The stones are massive, rough, cold to the touch. They hold the warmth of the day only briefly before surrendering to the night's chill. 2 torches burn at the main entrance, their flames bending gently with the wind. They are not bright enough to challenge the darkness, only enough to mark the doorway and reassure those inside that someone remains awake. Because even here, especially here, the night must be watched carefully. Inside the outer courtyard, a pair of guards walk a slow circuit. Their armour is heavier than that of the town watch. Metal plates reflect faint glimmers of torchlight as they pass. Their movements are deliberate, boots striking stone with a steady rhythm. Clink, step, clink, step. They speak little. Night duty encourages quiet. From one of the towers above, another guard peers out over the countryside. From this height, the world stretches endlessly. The town walls form a protective circle below, and beyond them lies darkness, fields, forests, and distant roads invisible in the night. The guard rests his hands on the stone edge of the battlement and breathes in the cold air. He can see the faint glow of hearth fires in a few scattered homes inside the town. Small, warm dots of life, but outside the walls, nothing, just shadow. Within the castle's inner halls, things are quieter still. The great hall, which earlier in the evening may have hosted a meal, now stands nearly empty. Long wooden tables are cleared, plates stacked, benches pushed inward. Only a few candles remain lit along the walls. Their flames cast long, wavering shadows that stretch across tapestries depicting battles, hunts, and family crests. In daylight, these images are bold and clear. At night, they seem almost alive, figures shifting as the candlelight flickers. The fire in the hearth has been reduced to embers. A servant kneels carefully to arrange the coals so they will last until morning without flaring dangerously high. Fire, even inside stone walls, must be controlled. Up a winding staircase in a private chamber, the lord of the castle prepares for rest. His room is larger than most homes in the town, but not luxurious by modern standards. Thick stone walls hold the cold. A heavy wooden bed stands against one side of the room, layered with furs and wool blankets for warmth. A single candle burns on a small table beside him. He removes a ring from his finger and places it carefully in a wooden box. His boots are set neatly near the bed. A sword rests within reach, not because he expects attack tonight, but because habit and caution are woven deeply into his life. Even those with power feel the vulnerability of night. He kneels briefly in prayer, not dramatic, not long, just a quiet acknowledgement of forces beyond his control. Then he extinguishes the candle. Darkness fills the chamber. Only moonlight slipping through a narrow window outlines the shape of the room. Elsewhere in the castle, servants settle into their own sleeping spaces. Unlike the lord's chamber, their quarters are shared. Straw pallets line the walls of a lower room. Cloaks serve as blankets. Privacy is rare. Warmth is communal. A young servant girl stares at the ceiling for a moment before closing her eyes. Her day began before sunrise, carrying water, preparing food, tending fires. Her body is tired, but her mind drifts gently through thoughts of home, a smaller house in the town below. Even within the castle walls, people carry ordinary dreams. In the castle kitchen, everything is finally still. Earlier the room was alive with chopping, stirring, roasting, and shouting instructions. Now the large hearth is dark. Pots hang silently from hooks. A faint scent of herbs and smoke lingers in the air. One last servant checks the door latch before leaving. Wood against wood, a simple bar in place, then silence. Back in the courtyard, the guards pause near the well. One adjusts his cloak against the chill. The other glances toward the tower where a small lantern still burns. "Quiet," he mutters. The word drifts into the night air and disappears. Quiet is good. Quiet means no alarms, no horns, no pounding at the gate. But quiet can also feel heavy. In the deep hours of the night when most of the castle sleeps, those who remain awake feel the weight of responsibility more strongly. They are the thin line between order and chaos, between safety and surprise. From the highest tower, the moon now sits fully above the horizon. Its light spills across the stone courtyard like pale water. The edges of the castle walls glow faintly silver. Beyond them, the town rests. From this height, the rooftops form uneven patterns, and the narrow streets between them are barely visible. The world seems peaceful, still, frozen in time, and yet life continues quietly in small pockets. A baby cries briefly in a house near the wall. A watchman shifts his weight near the gate. The baker's oven glows faintly in the distance. These small movements are almost invisible from the tower, but they exist. Night does not erase life, it softens it. In a small chamber near the chapel inside the castle, a priest sits awake. He reads by candlelight, the flame reflecting softly in his eyes. The pages of his book are thick, carefully inked by hand. Each word carries meaning, each letter shaped slowly and deliberately. Outside his narrow window, the wind hums faintly against stone. He pauses in his reading and listens. There is comfort in the routine of night prayer, in repetition, in rhythm. While soldiers guard walls and servants rest, he guards something less visible: faith. The hours stretch quietly. Time feels slower in darkness. There are no clocks ticking loudly, only subtle markers: the slow burning of a candle, the cooling of stone floors, the gradual shift of stars overhead. In a castle, as in the town below, night is both protective and exposing. It shields with darkness, but it also reveals how fragile everything truly is. Without daylight, power feels quieter, authority feels less visible. Everyone, from lord to servant, lies beneath the same sky, under the same moon, behind the same darkness. Near the main gate of the castle, one guard pauses and leans lightly against the wall. He looks down toward the town. Somewhere down there, his own family sleeps in a modest home. He imagines the narrow street outside their door, the wooden shutters closed tight, the familiar creak of their floorboards. For a moment the castle feels less grand, less distant, because night reminds everyone of what matters most. Not banners, not titles, not stone walls, but warmth, rest, and the hope that morning will arrive peacefully. As the hours move toward their quiet end, the castle settles deeper into stillness. The torches at the entrance burn lower. The embers in the great hall glow faintly. The guards' footsteps grow slower but remain steady. The moon begins its slow descent across the sky, and though most inside the walls do not notice, the world inches gently toward dawn. Soon, the first pale light will touch the highest tower. Soon, servants will stir, fires will be rekindled, the great hall will fill once more with footsteps and voices, but for now, the castle stands silent in the dark, a stone giant resting beneath the moon, watching over the sleeping town, holding its breath, waiting patiently for morning. While the castle stands in guarded silence, and the town below sleeps behind barred doors, there is one place where night is not simply endured, but embraced. At the edge of the town walls, close enough to hear the distant watchman's call, yet far enough to feel separate from daily noise, stands a small monastery. By day, its courtyard fills with quiet movement, robes brushing against stone paths, soft voices exchanging greetings, the steady rhythm of work, tending gardens, copying manuscripts, preparing simple meals. But at night, the monastery transforms into something even quieter. The outer gate is closed, though not barred with the same urgency as the town's heavy doors. Inside, stone corridors wind through small chambers and narrow passageways. A single bell rings, not loudly, not urgently, but gently. It signals the hour of nocturnal prayer. Inside their simple cells, small stone rooms containing little more than a wooden cot, a blanket, and perhaps a small table, the monks stir. There is no groaning at being woken, no complaint. This is routine. This is devotion. Sandaled feet touch cold stone floors. Wool robes are pulled over shoulders. Candles are lit carefully, their flames small and controlled. One by one, they move through the corridor toward the chapel. Their footsteps are soft, measured, familiar. If you stood in that corridor, you would hear nothing but the faint shuffle of cloth and the distant whisper of wind outside. The chapel itself is simple. Stone walls, wooden benches, an altar illuminated by a few steady candles. As the monks take their places, the room fills not with noise, but with presence. They begin to chant, not loudly, not dramatically, but steadily. Low voices blending together in slow rhythm. The sound rises gently toward the vaulted ceiling, then settles back down like a warm blanket. In the medieval world, night prayer was a reminder. Darkness does not mean abandonment. It does not mean emptiness. It is simply another part of the cycle. Outside the monastery walls, the town lies still. Inside, time feels suspended. The chanting continues for many minutes, sometimes longer. The words repeat, familiar phrases spoken night after night. Repetition is calming, predictable, grounding. When the prayer ends, there is no applause, no announcement, just silence. The monks remain seated for a few moments more, heads bowed. Then slowly they rise and return to their cells. Some will sleep again, some will remain awake, reading by candlelight. Some may copy texts, carefully tracing letters onto parchment with steady hands. In these quiet hours, manuscripts are created. Religious texts, historical records, illuminated pages decorated with gold leaf and careful designs. It is delicate work. The scratch of quill against parchment is barely audible. Ink must be applied evenly. Mistakes are costly. Imagine sitting in that room, only one candle lit, the world beyond the thick stone walls completely silent, every stroke of the pen deliberate, every breath visible in the cool air. This too is part of medieval nightlife, not dramatic, not chaotic, but purposeful. Beyond the monastery garden, the fields stretch into darkness. The crops, wheat, barley, vegetables, sway faintly in the night breeze. No one walks among them now. No farmer inspects rows by lantern light. Farming is tied to daylight, but animals stir occasionally in their pens. A horse shifts its weight. A cow exhales deeply. Chickens remain perched and silent. The natural world follows its own rhythm. Owls glide silently between trees. Foxes move carefully along hedgerows. Small creatures rustle in tall grass. The medieval town does not control the night. It shares it. Back within the town walls, most homes remain completely dark. But in one small upper room near the market square, a faint glow still flickers. An elderly woman sits beside a small oil lamp. Sleep does not come easily to her anymore. Her joints ache in the cold. Her thoughts wander through memories of decades past. She listens to the distant chant from the monastery, barely audible, carried faintly by the wind. It comforts her, reminds her that someone is awake, someone is praying. Even in darkness, she's not alone. After a while, she gently extinguishes the lamp, and finally she rests. At the southern gate, the town watch pauses once more. One of them stretches his shoulders carefully. "Almost morning," he murmurs. His partner nods. The sky has not yet lightened, but something subtle has shifted. The deepest part of night has passed. There is a feeling, difficult to explain, that the darkness has peaked and is now slowly thinning. Even before light appears, the air changes, less heavy, less still. The watchman lifts his lantern slightly higher. Its flame seems weaker now compared to the coming dawn. Inside the castle chapel, a single candle still burns near the altar. Its flame is steady, small, persistent, much like the lives of the people in the town below. Night in a medieval town is not full of constant danger, nor is it empty. It is layered with quiet devotion, private thoughts, guarded responsibility, subtle movement, unseen labour. It is a time when the world narrows, when light becomes precious, when routine becomes comfort. And as you imagine yourself there, walking slowly past the monastery walls, hearing faint chants fade into silence, notice how calm it feels. No rushing carts, no shouting vendors, no ringing market bells, just breathing, stone beneath your feet, stars overhead, and the knowledge that somewhere beyond the horizon, morning is preparing to arrive. But before it does, there are still a few more hours to explore, a few more corners of the medieval night. By now in the night, most honest townsfolk are asleep. The tavern's fire has dimmed to embers. The baker's ovens, once blazing and alive, are cold. Windows that glowed golden an hour ago now show only faint candle flickers, or complete darkness. The air feels cooler, quieter, but the town is not entirely asleep, because when most people lie in their beds, a few remain awake, and among them is the night watch. The bell of the 10th hour. In many medieval towns, the passing of time at night was marked not by clocks in every home, but by a bell, perhaps from the church tower, perhaps from a watchman walking the streets with a handbell. When the 10th hour sounds, the streets officially belong to the watch. If you were standing in a narrow lane at this moment, you might hear clang, 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 a slow, steady rhythm. The watchman calls out in a calm but firm voice, 10 of the clock, and all is well. His words drift through wooden shutters and stone walls. To sleeping townsfolk it is reassurance. To anyone wandering without good reason, it is a warning. Who were the night watch? The night watch was not always a professional force. In many towns, ordinary citizens took turns serving. A butcher one week, a cooper the next, a cloth merchant after that. Some towns paid a small wage, others required service as part of civic duty. Imagine being a tired craftsman, after a full day of work, now walking the streets until dawn with a spear and lantern, not glamorous, not heroic, just necessary. What they carried. The typical night watchman might carry a wooden staff or spear, a small sword or dagger, a horn or bell, a lantern with a candle inside. The lantern light flickers softly against timber-framed houses. Shadows stretch long and thin. Every doorway looks deeper, every alley darker. But the watchman walks slowly, steadily, boots tapping softly against cobblestones. Their main fear, fire more than thieves, more than drunken brawls. The greatest fear of any medieval town at night was fire. Houses were often built of wood. Roofs were thatched. One stray spark could mean disaster. So the watch listened carefully, for the crackle of flames, for the smell of smoke. If fire was spotted, the watchman would shout loudly, "Fire! Fire!" Church bells would ring frantically. Townsfolk would stumble from beds grabbing buckets. But tonight, there is no smoke, only cool air and stillness. Drunkards and late wanderers. Not everyone goes home on time. From time to time, the watch might encounter someone weaving slightly as they walk. A man who stayed too long at the tavern. A traveller who arrived late at the gate. The watchman's job was not always to arrest. Often, it was simply to ensure order. "Home with you," he might say gently. In smaller towns, everyone knew everyone. Too much trouble would earn you a reputation, and reputation mattered deeply in medieval life. Curfew bells. In some towns, a curfew bell rang at a set hour. The word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu, meaning cover the fire. After the bell, families were expected to dampen their hearth fires, close shutters, stay indoors. This reduced the risk of nighttime fires. So when the curfew bell rings, you can imagine, one by one, fires dim, candles are snuffed, voices fade, the town exhales, the city gates at night. Earlier in the evening, the great wooden gates were closed. Heavy beams slid into place. Iron bolts secured the entrance. After dark, entry was limited. If a traveller arrived too late, they might have to sleep outside the walls. Picture a lone traveller under the stars beyond the gate, his cloak pulled tight, the distant town visible but unreachable. Inside, the watch patrols the wall walks above, looking outward, listening. On the town walls. In larger towns and cities, guards stood along the walls. The night feels different up there, higher, cooler. A faint wind moves across battlements. From this height, you see, faint torchlight in distant farmhouses, the dark ribbon of a river field silvered by moonlight. The guard leans on his spear. He is tired, but he must remain alert, because though most nights are quiet, no one can predict the unexpected. Sounds of the sleeping town. If you pause and truly listen, a medieval town at night is not silent. You might hear a dog barking distantly, the soft shuffle of hooves from a stable, a baby crying briefly before being soothed, the creak of wood as houses settle. Perhaps rain begins softly tapping on roofs, or wind sighs through narrow alleys. Each sound stands out, because there are so few. The smell of night. During the day, the town smells busy, bread baking, smoke rising, animals, people, markets. At night, the scents change. Cool damp stone, faint ash from dying fires, wet earth. The air feels heavier, calmer. You breathe more slowly without realizing. A thief in the shadows. Stories of thieves often exaggerate the danger. In truth, most medieval towns were tight-knit communities, but theft did happen. So imagine, somewhere in the darker corner of town, a shadow moving carefully, a figure slipping between buildings, not running, just quiet. The watchman's lantern glow appears at the end of the lane. Footsteps approach. The shadow freezes. The watchman passes. The shadow disappears, and the town returns to stillness. No chase tonight, only whispers of possibility. Monasteries after dark. If your town has a monastery, the night there follows a different rhythm. Monks do not sleep straight through. They rise in the dark for prayers called matins. Picture a quiet stone chapel. Candles lit softly, chanting low and slow. Voices echo gently against stone walls. While the town sleeps, the monastery sings. A peaceful contrast, the poor and the homeless. Not everyone in a medieval town had a comfortable bed. Some slept in shared spaces, some in barns, some beneath awnings. Night for them is colder, harder. But even then, exhaustion eventually wins. Under wool cloaks, beside animals, they drift into uneasy sleep. The watch might glance their way, but often leaves them undisturbed. The long hours before dawn, After midnight, time feels stretched. The watchman's steps grow slower. His lantern burns lower. The sky remains dark, but the deepest part of night has passed. This is the quietest time, when even the tavern rats have settled, when the town feels suspended outside of time. A sudden fog. Imagine now, a thin fog rolling in. It creeps through the gate cracks, slides between houses, softens edges. Lantern light becomes a glowing halo. The watchman's silhouette blurs. Footsteps sound closer than they are. The world feels smaller, but not frightening, just hushed, as if the town itself is dreaming. The first hint of dawn. Eventually, after hours of walking, the eastern sky changes, not bright, just slightly less black. A cool grey touches the horizon. The watchman notices. He takes a deeper breath. His shift is nearly done. Soon the baker will wake. Soon the rooster will crow, and the town will begin again. For now. The last bell rings softly. All is well, and it truly is. The night has passed peacefully. The watch has done its duty, and the medieval town, wrapped in darkness only hours ago, prepares gently for morning. Take a slow breath. Imagine those quiet streets fading, lanterns dimming, footsteps growing distant, and allow your own thoughts to slow the same way. Because just like that town, you too can rest safely through the night. The town has grown quieter now, not silent, never truly silent, but quieter in a way that feels thick and layered. The last tavern doors have closed. The final mugs of ale have been drained. The hearths in small homes burn low, glowing like sleepy embers beneath iron grates. Above, the moon hangs pale over timbered rooftops, silver light brushing against crooked chimneys and narrow lanes. And now, the watch begins. In many medieval towns, especially by the 13th and 14th centuries, night was not left unguarded. Fear of fire, theft, drunken brawls, or wandering strangers meant someone had to remain awake while others slept. The night watchmen were rarely glamorous figures. They were not knights, they were not nobles. Often they were ordinary townsmen, craftsmen, tradesmen, or poorer citizens, required to take turns guarding the streets. In some towns, this duty rotated among guild members. In others, men were paid a small wage. You can imagine one of them now. He steps slowly along the cobbled street, boots pressing softly against stone worn smooth by generations of feet. In one hand he carries a lantern, a simple iron frame holding a flickering candle or small oil flame. In the other, perhaps a staff or a short spear. His cloak is wrapped tight against the cold. He pauses beneath a wooden balcony and listens. Not for anything specific, just listening. The medieval night was full of small sounds. A shutter creaking gently in the breeze. A dog barking once in the distance. The faint shuffle of livestock in a stable. The rustle of rats in alley shadows. None of it unusual, none of it alarming. But his task is patience. In some towns, watchmen would call out the hours as they passed. You might hear a distant voice echoing softly between buildings. 10 o'clock, and all is well. The words drift across sleeping rooftops like a lullaby. All is well. It's a comforting phrase. In truth, not everything was always well, but the ritual of saying it helped maintain calm, both for the town and for the watchman himself. Imagine standing there with him now. The air smells faintly of wood smoke and damp earth. The sky is deep indigo, scattered with more stars than most modern cities will ever see. Without electric lights, the heavens stretch brilliantly above the town, constellations glowing clearly, the Milky Way faintly shimmering like spilled flour across dark velvet. If clouds pass, the town becomes darker still, almost completely black. Only lantern light and moonlight guide the way. The watchman moves again, turning into a narrower lane. Here the houses lean toward each other, upper floors jutting out so far they nearly meet overhead. It feels like walking through a tunnel made of timber and plaster. He taps his staff lightly on the ground as he walks. A small signal, a steady rhythm, proof that someone is awake. Sometimes he might pause near the town gate. The gates are closed at night in many walled towns, thick wooden doors reinforced with iron bands. No one enters without cause. Travellers arriving late must wait until dawn. Outside those gates, the countryside stretches silent and dark. Fields lie under moonlight. A distant owl glides soundlessly over hedgerows. But inside the walls, there is safety, at least in theory. The watchman exchanges a quiet word with the gate guard. Perhaps they share a small joke. Perhaps they simply nod. Their voices are hushed. Night makes everyone speak more softly. Somewhere nearby, a church bell might mark another hour. The church, even at night, holds a kind of presence. Its tall spire points upward like a finger toward the heavens. Sometimes a single candle burns near the altar inside, left by a priest who rises early for morning prayers. In monasteries or abbeys, monks would wake long before sunrise for matins, the first prayer of the day. But that is still hours away. For now the town rests. Let your breathing slow as the watchman walks. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. He turns toward the marketplace. In daylight, this square bursts with sound. Shouting vendors, clattering carts, children weaving between stalls. But now the wooden tables are folded. Cloth awnings are tied down. The well stands silent in the centre. The empty space feels almost sacred in its stillness. A stray cat slips between barrels. It pauses to glance at the lantern light, eyes reflecting gold for just a moment, then disappearing again. The watchman is not afraid of cats. He is more wary of fire. Fire is the great enemy of medieval towns. With so many wooden structures packed closely together, a single spark could destroy entire streets. So part of his duty is simply to watch for unusual glow or smoke. He looks up at rooftops occasionally, checking for orange flickers where none should be. Everything seems calm. If a drunk stumbles from a late tavern gathering, the watchman might gently guide him home, or at least ensure he doesn't start trouble. Serious crimes are rare at this hour. Most people are asleep, exhausted from long days of labour. Night in the medieval world was primarily for rest. Without artificial lighting, there was little reason to stay awake long. Candles were expensive. Oil was precious. Darkness encouraged stillness. And in that darkness, people dreamed. Behind wooden doors, families sleep on straw mattresses stuffed into rough linen sacks. Sometimes several people share a bed. Warmth matters during cold months. A baby might stir briefly, then settle again. A baker dreams of kneading dough. A farmer dreams of open fields. A child dreams of chasing geese across a sunny yard. The watchman will not know these dreams, but he guards them nonetheless. Isn't that a peaceful thought? Someone walking softly outside, making sure the world remains quiet enough for you to rest. He stops again. He listens. A soft sound. Scraping perhaps. He moves closer to the noise, lantern lifted slightly. But it is only a loose shutter shifting in the wind. The metal latch taps gently against wood. He adjusts it carefully so it won't wake the family inside. Even small kindnesses matter. Time passes slowly at night. Without clocks on every wall, the rhythm of hours feels softer. Bells mark certain points, but much of the night blends together, one cool breath following another. The watchman leans briefly against a wall, resting his feet. He may feel tired. His eyelids grow heavy, but he cannot sleep yet. Soon enough, his shift will end. Dawn is still far away, but it is coming. It always comes. And as you imagine him walking, perhaps you feel your own thoughts slowing. The medieval night does not rush. It stretches gently. The lantern flame flickers with each step, casting small golden circles on stone. The rest of the world remains wrapped in deep blue shadow. Another hour is called softly. Midnight, and all is well. midnight, the centre of the night. For some, this hour felt mysterious. Stories of spirits and wandering souls often belonged to midnight, but in truth, most nights were uneventful, ordinary, calm. The watchman continues his slow circuit. His boots echo lightly in an empty lane, and as he walks, you can let your mind wander too. Imagine the feel of cool air on your skin, the scent of distant wood smoke, the gentle hush of a town at rest. Nothing urgent, nothing demanding, just quiet stone streets under starlight. Eventually, far off in the countryside beyond the walls, a rooster may stir prematurely. It is too early for dawn, but animals sometimes sense subtle changes in light before humans do. The sky at the horizon begins to shift ever so slightly. Not bright yet, just a thinning of darkness. The watchman notices. His shift is nearing its end. He takes one final walk past the marketplace, one final glance toward the gate, one final check of the narrow alleyways. Everything remains still. And then, in the distance, perhaps from the church tower, a faint bell marks the approaching early hour. Soon, bakers will rise. Soon, hearths will be stoked again. Soon, smoke will curl from chimneys as the town prepares for another day. But for this last stretch of night, silence still holds the streets. The watchman lowers his lantern slightly, flame burning lower now as oil thins. He whispers softly to himself. Perhaps not the formal call, but something quieter. All is well. And truly, in this moment, it is. As you rest here in this gentle medieval night, let your breathing slow once more. Inhale. Exhale. The lantern light fades softly. The cobbled streets grow distant. The stars blur into peaceful darkness. The watchman's footsteps become softer, slower, further away, until all that remains is calm, and you can drift deeper into sleep. Allow your body to sink a little deeper into comfort. Your shoulders loosen, your eyelids grow heavier. This is a calm place, a quiet place, a slow journey through history. Nothing here is urgent, nothing here demands anything from you. You are safe, and we continue. The night has reached its softest point. Not quite morning, not quite darkness. That delicate in-between time when the sky begins to change, but the world has not yet noticed. The watchman still walks his final round, but now the air feels slightly different, cooler, thinner, as if the darkness itself is preparing to step aside. Above the rooftops, the stars begin to fade, not all at once, but slowly, like embers losing their glow. If you look toward the eastern horizon beyond the town walls, you would see the faintest shade of grey gently brushing the edge of the world. It is almost imperceptible, but it is there. Inside the town, most people still sleep. Straw mattresses rustle softly as someone turns in a dream. A wooden bed frame creaks faintly. A small child sighs in their sleep, clutching a worn wool blanket. In one narrow house near the marketplace, the baker begins to stir. Bakers rise earlier than almost anyone else in the medieval town. Bread must be ready when the sun rises. So while the sky is still dim and colourless, he carefully slips from his bed. He does not light a bright lantern, only a small candle. The tiny flame pushes back just enough darkness to guide his steps. He moves quietly, not wishing to wake the rest of the household. Down the wooden stairs he goes, each step familiar beneath his feet. He reaches the stone hearth where yesterday's embers lie buried beneath ash. With patient hands he brushes the ash aside and blows gently. A faint red glow answers him. He adds a few thin twigs, then slightly thicker pieces of wood. Slowly, patiently, the fire wakes. There is no rush. Everything before dawn happens slowly. The watchman, finishing his route, sees the faint curl of smoke begin to rise from the baker's chimney. He nods to himself. Morning is near. Across the town, another small light appears in a different window. Perhaps a dairymaid rising early. Perhaps a monk in a small priory preparing for matins. In monasteries and abbeys, monks would wake long before sunrise for prayer. Their routine followed the rhythm of sacred hours, matins in the deep early morning, followed by lauds at dawn. Imagine, just outside the town walls, a small stone monastery resting in quiet fields. Inside, a single bell rings softly, not loud, not harsh, just enough to gently call the brothers from sleep. The sound carries through cold morning air, steady and calm. Back in town, the eastern sky is now faintly pale blue. The darkness no longer feels heavy. It feels thin, like a veil lifting. The watchman makes his final stop near the town gate. The gate guards stretch stiff limbs and rub tired eyes. Soon they will prepare to open the heavy wooden doors. Iron hinges groan softly as they test the bolts. Outside the walls, a thin mist lies over the fields. The world beyond looks peaceful, silvered by the coming dawn. Inside homes, more people begin to wake. A mother stirs and sits up slowly. She pulls a wool shawl around her shoulders before stepping onto the cool floor. She adds wood to her hearth. A faint crackle answers her. In another house, a blacksmith wakes but does not rise yet. He listens. The town has a sound at dawn, a subtle layering of life returning. First, one rooster calls, then another answers. A dog barks once sharply, then quiets. A cartwheel shifts somewhere as a farmer prepares for market. None of it loud, none of it chaotic. Just the gentle hum of a town remembering it must begin again. The watchman's duty is nearly complete. He walks one last time through the marketplace. Now, in the dim blue light, shapes are easier to see. The well stands clearly in the centre. Wooden stool frames cast long, thin shadows across the ground. The lantern in his hand is almost unnecessary now. The sky itself provides light. He extinguishes the flame carefully, pinching it out between damp fingers. A thin wisp of smoke curls upward. Night has officially ended. The sky shifts from pale blue to soft pink near the horizon. Clouds, if there are any, catch the light first, glowing faintly like brushed silk. Sunrise in the medieval world was more dramatic than many modern mornings. Without tall buildings or electric glow, the colours felt vast and open. The first golden edge of the sun appears, and with it, warmth. Not heat yet, just a gentle promise. The town gate opens with a deep wooden creak. Outside, a few travellers who waited through the night stir from blankets wrapped around them. They gather their belongings and prepare to enter. A farmer drives a small cart toward the gate, wheels rolling slowly over packed earth. The guards nod and step aside. The medieval day begins quietly. Back in the baker's shop, dough is already rising near the fire. The scent of yeast and warm flour begins to drift faintly into the street. It is one of the first smells of morning. Fresh bread. Soon others will rise. Apprentices will sweep shop floors. Merchants will arrange goods on wooden tables. Children will rub sleep from their eyes and prepare to help with chores. But for now there is still softness in the air. That fragile pause between night and full day. The watchman hands over his staff. His shift is done. He walks home slowly, fatigue settling into his bones. He passes neighbours just waking, exchanging quiet nods. There is something peaceful about finishing a night of guardianship and seeing that everything remains intact. No fires, no alarms, no danger. All is well. As he reaches his door, the sun lifts higher. Golden light spills over rooftops, warming stone walls and illuminating narrow streets. Birdsong grows louder now. Sparrows hop along wooden beams. A swallow darts through the air. The sky brightens fully into morning blue, and with that, the magic of night dissolves completely. But you can remain in this gentle moment. Imagine standing in the marketplace as the first true rays of sunlight touch the cobblestones. Feel the warmth on your face. Hear the quiet stir of early activity. Not overwhelming, not rushed, just steady life beginning again. The medieval town, which only hours ago lay wrapped in deep indigo silence, now breathes with calm purpose. The watchman closes his shutters and lies down to rest. The baker slides the first loaves into the oven. The monks chant softly in their chapel. The farmer guides his cart into the square, and the sun continues to rise. If your mind feels heavy now, if your thoughts feel softer, that is perfectly fine. You have walked through the darkest hours. You have stood beneath stars. You have watched lantern light flicker and fade. You have seen the first glow of dawn. And now the world is safe. Take one last slow breath. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. The medieval town is awake again, but you do not need to be. You can drift into your own quiet morning, or deeper still into peaceful sleep. The sun has now risen above the rooftops. Golden light spills down the narrow streets of the medieval town, touching timbered walls and warming cold stone. The deep blues of night have completely faded, replaced by gentle shades of gold and pale morning sky. The town is no longer asleep, but it is not loud yet. Morning in a medieval town begins gradually, like a piece of music building softly from silence. The baker is the first to truly bring life to the marketplace. His oven glows warmly, radiating heat into the small shop. He uses a long wooden peel to pull out the first loaves of bread. Their crusts are deep brown, slightly cracked, releasing curls of steam into the air. The scent drifts outward. Warm bread, yeast and smoke, comfort and familiarity. It reaches the street, wrapping around corners and slipping into open windows. Soon, a door across the square creaks open. A woman steps outside with a wooden bucket. She walks toward the well in the centre of the marketplace. The iron handle turns slowly, rope sliding against stone as the bucket lowers into cool water below. There is a soft splash, then the steady pull upward. The sound is rhythmic, almost soothing. In another home, a blacksmith pushes open his shutters. Light spills into his workshop, illuminating tools that hung silent through the night. Hammers, tongs, and iron bars catch the sun faintly. He does not begin pounding yet. That comes later. For now, he simply stretches and breathes in the morning air. Roosters call again, louder now, confident in the daylight. Chickens scatter across small yards. A dog trots down the lane, tail low but relaxed. Children begin to wake fully. You might imagine one small boy sitting up in bed, hair tousled, rubbing his eyes. He hears the sounds of carts rolling in the distance and smells bread drifting through the window. His day will involve chores, perhaps gathering kindling, helping in the shop, or carrying goods. But right now, he simply listens. Morning is gentle. Merchants begin arriving in the marketplace. Wooden stalls are unfolded. Cloth awnings are stretched and tied. Crates are opened carefully. A vegetable seller arranges turnips and cabbages in neat rows. A fishmonger lays out his catch on a bed of damp straw, hoping to sell quickly before the sun climbs too high. The quiet murmur of conversation begins. Soft greetings. Good morning. How was the night? All well? There is comfort in repetition, in knowing that yesterday ended safely and today begins the same way. The watchman, now home, sleeps deeply in his small room. His task is finished, and the town he guarded continues without him for now. At the church, bells begin to ring again, not the hushed tone of early dawn, but a clearer call. Mass will begin soon. A few townspeople walk toward the church door, heads bowed slightly, footsteps measured. The stone building feels cool inside, sunlight streaming through narrow windows in soft beams. Candles flicker near the altar. The priest's voice rises calmly, echoing in the vaulted space. Even if you cannot hear the exact words, the tone is steady and peaceful. Back outside, the town becomes busier. Cartwheels roll over cobblestones. Hooves clop steadily. A donkey brays once, loudly, then quiets as its handler pats its neck. The marketplace fills gradually, yet even as activity increases there is a certain simplicity to the rhythm. No machines roar, no engines hum, no sudden electronic sounds break the air. Everything is human scale. Voices, wood, iron, animals. The sun climbs higher, casting shorter shadows. Laundry flutters from upper windows, simple linen shirts and wool garments catching the light breeze. A tailor opens his shop, setting out neatly folded fabric. A potter arranges glazed bowls in careful rows, their earthy colours glowing softly in sunlight. Children weave between adults, occasionally laughing, occasionally being gently called back. The medieval town now feels alive, fully awake. But notice something. The energy is not frantic. It is purposeful, steady, grounded. People move with intention because their survival depends on daily work. Yet there is no rush to beat traffic, no constant clock ticking in every pocket. Time flows differently. The rhythm follows the sun. As the light brightens, so does activity. As afternoon approaches, tasks will peak, and when evening comes, the whole process will reverse again, slowly, gently, back into shadow. But for now, this is morning. The well continues to serve bucket after bucket. The baker's shop has a small line forming. Coins clink softly as bread changes hands. Steam rises from fresh loaves, visible in the cooler morning air. A young apprentice sweeps dust from a doorway, pushing it into the street where passing carts scatter it again. Life feels cyclical, simple, predictable, and that predictability brings calm. Imagine standing at the edge of the marketplace now. The sun warms your face. You hear layered sounds, distant conversation, a rooster, wooden wheels, soft hammer taps beginning in the blacksmith's yard. Nothing overwhelming, just the hum of a community beginning its day. If you were to close your eyes here, just for a moment, you would still sense the structure of the town around you. The tall church tower, the timbered houses leaning slightly inward, the stone well at the centre, the narrow lanes branching outward like quiet streams. This is how a medieval town moves from darkness to daylight, not with sudden noise, not with alarm clocks and flashing lights, but with bread rising, with bells ringing, with shutters opening one by one. The memory of night still lingers faintly in shaded corners. Cool air remains tucked between buildings where sunlight has not yet reached. But that too will fade. By midday the town will feel entirely different. For now, though, let the gentle morning surround you. The watchman sleeps. The baker smiles quietly at his work. The priest finishes prayer. Children begin their small adventures. And the sun continues its steady climb across a clear sky. Take a slow breath. Inhale the scent of warm bread and fresh air. Exhale any lingering tension. The medieval night has passed. The medieval morning has begun. And you can rest within this calm, steady rhythm, as if time itself has softened just for you. The medieval town is fully awake. Morning has stretched into midday. The golden light that once brushed rooftops now rests strongly upon the marketplace. Shadows are shorter. Voices are fuller. The square is alive with movement. Merchants call softly to passing customers. A butcher sharpens his blade in slow, steady strokes. The blacksmith's hammer now rings with clear rhythm, not harsh, but measured, almost musical. Clang, pause, clang. Each strike shaping iron while the forge breathes warm air into the workshop. Children chase one another between stalls, laughter rising briefly before dissolving into the general hum of the crowd. Yet even in this busiest hour, life remains grounded. There is no frantic rushing, no overwhelming noise, just the steady rhythm of hands working, feet walking, coins exchanging. Time here is marked not by minutes but by light. The sun slowly begins its descent. though no one notices at first. A farmer sells the last of his vegetables. A woman wraps fresh bread in linen. A cobbler inspects a finished shoe with careful satisfaction. Above them all, the sky shifts almost invisibly, from bright blue toward a softer shade. Afternoon becomes early evening. The heat of the day begins to fade. And just as morning arrived gently, so too does the closing of the day. The blacksmith slows his hammer. The final strike rings out and then does not repeat. He wipes sweat from his brow and allows the forge to cool. Merchants begin packing their goods. Wooden stalls fold inward. Cloth awnings are untied and rolled carefully. There is a sense of completion. Tasks finished, work done, another day survived. At the well, fewer buckets are lowered now. The rope hangs still. The church bell rings again, this time deeper, slower, calling for evening prayer. Some townspeople walk toward its doors once more. Inside, candlelight flickers softly, replacing the fading sun. Outside, the sky transforms, orange near the horizon, pink brushing the edges of distant clouds, purple slowly rising behind rooftops. The town glows in warm tones. This is the most beautiful moment of the medieval day. Not fully light, not yet dark. A pause. The baker closes his shutters. The smell of bread lingers faintly in the cooling air. The watchman, who slept through most of the day, now begins to stir. His role will soon return. Doors close gently across the town. Wooden bars slide into place. Families gather around hearths where small fires are lit once more. Simple meals are shared. Bread, stew, perhaps a bit of cheese. Voices are quieter now, tired but content. Children grow drowsy. One by one they are guided to beds of straw and wool blankets. Outside, the last light drains from the sky. The first star appears, then another. Lanterns are lit again, small golden circles glowing in windows. The town that was bright and busy only hours ago begins to soften at the edges. The watchman steps into the street once more. His staff taps gently against stone. Tap, tap, tap. The sound you heard at the very beginning of our journey returns. The cycle is complete. Night wraps around the town again, not as something frightening, but as something natural, protective, quiet. The marketplace empties completely. The well stands silent. The church tower rises dark against a deep indigo sky. The medieval town breathes differently now, slower, heavier, softer. Inside homes, embers glow low in hearths. A final murmur of conversation fades into silence. Somewhere a dog shifts in its sleep. Somewhere a shutter creaks gently in the breeze. The watchman calls out into the darkness, "All is well." And it is, because the town has completed its circle. Darkness to dawn, dawn to day, day to dusk, dusk to night, just like breath. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The rhythm of medieval life was deeply tied to nature's turning. There were no glowing screens to stretch the hours, no artificial lights to erase the stars. When night came, people rested. When morning came, they rose. And in between, life unfolded steadily, predictably, calmly. As you lie here now, you have travelled through that entire rhythm. You walked under lantern light. You stood in the quiet marketplace at dawn. You felt the warmth of midday sun. You watched the sky burn orange at sunset, and now you stand once more beneath the stars. The watchman continues his slow walk. Tap, tap, tap. But his sound grows fainter. The town grows quieter. Lantern flames shrink to small points of light, then smaller still. Above, the sky deepens into velvety black, scattered with stars that shimmer gently without hurry. The medieval world sleeps, and you can too. There is nothing left to explore tonight, nothing left to guard, nothing left to prepare. The town is safe. You are safe. Let your breathing become slow and even. Feel the softness beneath you. Feel the comfort surrounding you. Imagine drifting upwards slightly, above the rooftops, above the church tower, above the quiet fields beyond the walls. From above, the town looks peaceful. Tiny lights glowing, streets empty, stars bright overhead, everything in its place, everything at rest, and slowly, even those tiny lights fade. The town disappears into gentle darkness, only the stars remain, and then even they soften, blurring, fading, until there is only calm, only quiet, only sleep. This is the end of our journey through what happened after dark in a medieval town. The cycle continues somewhere far away. But for you now, there is only deep, peaceful rest. Good night. Hey guys, tonight's journey is called What Happened After Dark in a Medieval Town. In a world without electricity, without glowing windows, without the distant hum of traffic or streetlights. What really happened when the sun slipped below the rooftops and the heavy wooden gates slowly closed. Before we begin, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Most of you watching aren't subscribed yet, and it truly helps this small, quiet corner of history continue to grow. And I'm always curious, right now, as you're listening in the stillness of the night, which city are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and if there's a medieval story you'd like to gently drift off to next, tell me that too. I read them all, and sometimes the next journey begins with your suggestion. Now, dim the lights, set your phone down softly, settle deeper into your pillow, and take one slow breath in and out. As the last light fades from the sky, we step quietly into the narrow cobblestone streets of a medieval town. After dark, the sun is beginning to lower itself behind the uneven rooftops of the medieval town. Its light stretches long and golden across crooked timber houses, narrow alleyways, and uneven cobblestones that have known the weight of countless footsteps. The air, which only hours ago buzzed with the noise of trade and chatter, begins to soften. Market stalls are being folded down. Wooden tables creak as they are dragged back inside. Fabric awnings are untied and shaken free of dust. A butcher wipes his hands slowly on a cloth that has seen better days. A baker stacks the last of the coarse loaves into a basket, saving them for tomorrow's early customers. The day is ending, and in a medieval town that means something very different from what it means today. There are no glowing streetlights waiting patiently to switch on, no electric lamps, no neon signs humming to life. Instead, the town prepares for darkness, true darkness. A bell begins to toll from the church tower. It is not rushed, it is not loud in an alarming way, but it is steady. 1, 2, 3. Each echo travels between the wooden beams and stone walls, signalling something understood by everyone who hears it. The gates will close soon. At the edges of the town stand large wooden gates reinforced with iron bands. During the day they remain open, allowing merchants, travellers, farmers and messengers to pass in and out. But once night approaches, those gates become barriers between safety and uncertainty. A pair of guards begin their slow walk toward the entrance. They wear simple armour, not polished and shining, but practical. Leather, chainmail, worn boots that have felt the weight of many patrols. One carries a lantern, already lit despite the remaining light. The flame flickers gently in the evening breeze. Children are being called indoors. A mother leans from a second-story window and shouts a name into the street below. A boy reluctantly abandons a stick-and-hoop game, glancing once more at the fading sky before disappearing through a wooden doorway. Inside homes, preparations begin. Candles are trimmed carefully. Wax is valuable. You do not waste it. Oil lamps are filled sparingly. Fireplaces are stoked just enough to last into the early night. Too much wood burned means less warmth for tomorrow. The medieval relationship with night is cautious. Darkness is not simply the absence of light. It is a presence. It carries uncertainty, but it also carries quiet. The final merchants hurry through the gate, leading donkeys or carrying small bundles. A late traveller approaches at an anxious pace, clearly hoping not to be locked outside. The guards exchange a glance, but allow him in just before the heavy wooden doors begin to move. The sound of the gates closing is unmistakable. A deep wooden groan. Iron hinges shifting.